What is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. How is everybody doing? Hey, I am going to start off with an apology. Man, it has been a rough few weeks. Got a lot going on, a lot of little projects and things going on, and then to top it off, 24 hours without power here at the studio, not helping productivity at all. But nonetheless, we are back, and this time around, we are going to be airing the second half of the conversation. Did you guys enjoy the last episode? We were talking with Donnie and Willem. Donnie representing School of Moto. Willem joining forces with them, Willem Avenant Racing, in the formation of Rally School. So you guys didn't hear that episode, you want to rewind back to that one and take a listen. That was a pretty good showing. Ready to get up there. I got to figure out some places, because we'll talk about that briefly before we get into the episode, and you guys hear the rest of the interview that we talked about with Willem, talking Dakar and getting entered and some of the things to expect, as now that they've released more information on what to expect for the Dakar this year. So you guys will be hearing that conversation here in just a few minutes. Start turning down the party. But I'm excited. We are going to be adding a new bike to the stable. I don't want to jinx it, but it might as well say it. There's a Cove, and this is too easy. There's a Cove on the way. We were able to find a great deal. We'll discuss more details about that later. But this should be fun. Going to be an interesting journey with this bike. I'm going to be looking forward to doing some stages and doing some stuff, a little bit more rally oriented. So we'll be talking a little bit more about the build and some of the stuff. In this particular case, shoulder tapping Mason Klein and Larry Klein Core Off-Road on their experience in building these bikes, getting them ready for the Dakar, and finding out a little bit more of the details and what some of the stuff that you can do to these bikes, get them prepared for a major race event like that. And as the Coves continue to take over, and you're starting to see more and more of them in social media, more and more of them in the hands of racers going to do serious rally events and stuff like that, it is absolutely awesome to see the growth, and I'm excited to get one of those bikes in the garage and start messing with it. Obviously, my riding ability is none anywhere near people like Happy Dave, who's got one. You've got Mason Klein, who's done 2 Dakars now aboard them, or one. Why am I losing? It was 2. I don't know. The caffeine isn't kicking in yet. But Mason Klein and Father Larry Klein have a lot of experience with these bikes already and developing them into a race bike even further than they already are from the factory. So really awesome to see that part of it. Looking forward to finding out a little bit more information about it and what goes into these builds and go from there. But hey, man, I'm telling you, there's these podcasts get expensive when you get to talk to people with a lot of cool toys. But anyway, so that is what is going on there. Mason Klein wrapping up Rally Jalapão, I believe that's how you pronounce it, down in Brazil, bringing home the hardware in the number 2 spot with that one, and with a broken hand. Not really sure and haven't confirmed what part of it is broken, but man, if you guys follow him on social media, he did post a couple of pictures of what was happening, and man, that looked pretty bad. His hand was pretty swollen, but even then was still able to bring home the hardware. So very well done there. A lot to talk about. I'm curious to see, how the rallies have been developing, riding for Honda South America or Honda Brazil, and what they have, partnered with and what they're doing. I mean, the bikes look pretty awesome. It is a rally, basically like a rally light-ish, because it does have a rear tank on it. So there's some pretty cool stuff on that one. Mason working on some top secret stuff. We'll talk more about that later in development. Been helping along with Rallyworks to help him with this little project that he's been up to. So excited to share more details about that in the future, but that will be coming. But anyway, what is everybody up to? It's the summer here in San Diego, so I'm like, okay, that means if we're riding, it's got to be early in the morning, which I'm okay with. I'm up at 3:30 in the morning anyway, so that is also coming, especially once we get the new bike handled. Got some other stuff going, spend some time in the garage cleaning and doing all these things, and it seems like that's the adult life thing now, right? Is you just kind of clean and do things like that, adult things, I guess. well, it is what it is, but we're having a lot of fun. Anyway, I hope you guys have had your coffee and everything is going well. I'm not sure. I think we're going to publish this here in a few minutes. It is Thursday, which we are a little bit off schedule, but I figured, you know what? We better just get this episode out because there was a lot of great stuff that Willem and I talked about as far as Dakar 2025. So if you guys are ready to go, let's get started. This is the second half of the conversation that we had with Donnie and Willem. This is just Willem and I talking about the 2025 Dakar. So hope you guys enjoy the episode. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. Excellent. Thank you guys. And absolutely. And Willem will be staying on because we've got some conversation coming about the 2025 Dakar.
Yeah, that's gonna be insane. I'm getting at everything.
Starting to feel real.
Well, they definitely, I've been speaking to quite a few people. They definitely gonna, behind the scenes, their MO is to make this the hardest Dakar up to date. Like they're not playing around this year. They don't want to advertise it because they don't want to scare people off. But reading between the lines, things are getting interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I definitely agree. And so that was it. Donnie jumped off. So let's switch gears. Let's talk 2025 Dakar. Right? We all, Nora Rally with the ASO put on an event in Ensenada, right? We went down to that to talk about the Dakar.
It was great to see you down there, man.
I know it was good to run into you and all of these people got to spend some time with Mason and family, and it was it was pretty awesome. It was a great little event, with amazing turnout. So that was really awesome. But we're going to get to that in just a minute. Let's catch up a little bit. Where are you at in the world, as far as getting prepared?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So once again, thanks, Victor, for having me on. I really, really appreciate it as always. It's really getting interesting. Last time we spoke about Decoding Dakar, I believe, on my way to the rally school. Our previous episode, so if you guys haven't listened to the previous episode, have a listen to the School of Moto episode we had previously. That kind of recaps what we did over in Colorado at Delta. And I kind of use these schools as training for myself as well. So, I'll have a camp or a school, and then I would go to the area a week or two before the time and then use that time to train, just because where I'm up in New England, I can't really ride. So last time we spoke, I believe I was getting ready for the rally school. Rally school went great. And now I'm currently on my way to Canada for the Boreal Royale. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I'm going to South Africa to train there pretty intensely. I've got 2 weeks of hard riding planned there, riding wise. Physically, I've really stepped things up. I guess all of these meetings and the entries opening and stuff like that, that's really kind of energized me to the point that I'm I row every day, I cycle every day, and then I went running last Friday, and I used to be a long distance trail runner until I broke my ankle, and I could feel that I ran the next day, and I'm like, man, I thought I'm fit, but geez, now things pain that didn't pain before. I'm definitely not big on the running. I'm guessing I'm gonna start putting, say, at least once a week a running exercise, like a 5 or 10K run in once a week, and then carry on, if I'm not riding a bike, pushing, rowing, and cycling. Obviously, the whole side of preparing for Dakar, there's so many. If you speak to 10 people, you'll have 10 different opinions. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of just doing what feels right for me, focusing on consistency, but also focusing on not getting injured, because I don't know. I think a lot of people suffer from this, is that the moment that you get a little bit fit, you end up pushing too hard. And, every single sports injury I've ever had was because I was doing too much exercise or doing too much too fast. Mm-hmm. And because I was scared of that, I already started exercising or preparing physically in October last year, so that I could have the luxury of not having to push physically too hard too quickly. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I think for the guys that are following Decoding Dakar and that's maybe thinking about doing this next year, be mindful that entries open in middle May. So theoretically, entries are open. A big thing that I have been doing finishing was my Dakar proposal, which took me pretty much, mine was ready. Like, I just had to put the finishing touches on. I've been working on it since January.
Mm-hmm.
So in April it was done. But that is by far your biggest thing to focus on as far as admin is concerned, because that is still, irrespective of the point system. I had a very long discussion with the ASO guys. What they call it project. I think the French love calling stuff projects, but that proposal of yours for Dakar, they still put a lot of kind of weight into that. Mm-hmm. So you need to make sure that, and I mean, now I'm talking as if I've been accepted, but they say that you need to put on a professional for them, otherwise they kind of and they kind of see that as a reflection of your dedication to Dakar, right? If your portfolio isn't professional and doesn't look good and doesn't go into detail, they feel that kind of reflects on you as a rider, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's like the having a CV, having a good presentation, and then going from there. I mean, I after talking to the guys in Ensenada, I spoke with them about it, and I'm interested on the staff side of it. And mm-hmm. First thing they said, okay, well, let's see your resume. It's not like, oh, I want to volunteer, and then in you go. So
even the volunteers get accepted.
Exactly. It's not which is good. I mean, if you think about the caliber of an event that it is, it's in this caliber and size, mm-hmm. I think it was pretty interesting, to hear, what you're saying, or it's interesting to me to hear that, they're saying, you need to focus on the points, but we need to see more than just that.
Mm-hmm. I think we covered this a little bit in the previous, or not a little bit, in the previous episode. But for me, and again, this is all conjecture because they won't come out and say something 100%. But mm-hmm. the way that I have now finally found peace in my heart about the points mm-hmm. is they use the points as a sifting mechanism. If you don't have 20 points, they're not even going to look at the CVs. It's more of just a way to, it's almost like when you're searching for diamonds, in the pan, like it's letting the stuff sink to the bottom, and then, they're gonna, the points is not what, yes, they say on paper, they say the points is what's going to decide it, but then upon closer inspection, speaking to them, emailing with them, doing interviews with them, it's very clear that, and they state that they still reserve the right to choose whoever the hell they want. So they still take all of the old stuff into account. The points are now just there to make sure they actually look at your proposal. That's how I kind of have now figured it out for myself. I don't know if I'm correct, but that's my feeling.
And it could be, and we had talked, previously about this, like you mentioned, that it's not just the point side of it, or the point side of it, based on what you're telling me right now, is I'm hearing is, we're going to look at the resumes. This is going to give us an idea of who you are. And if we got 10 really good people, then it's going to go to the points. No, it's almost like the points may have become a tiebreaker, mm-hmm. but you need a certain amount just to get even into the conversation. It's the buy-in.
Exactly. It's the buy-in. I love it. Yep. Yeah. It's the buy-in. It's the buy-in. And, and I can see why. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, because now we go into a deep discussion of the rally ethos. But what I can see is I can now, from being immersed a bit into their side, I can understand some of it, that you want to reward people that are loyal to the brand. And the way that I kind of see that is like, I was just very jealously looking at Ruta 40. And, there were several riders on Ruta 40 that is following the World Rally Raid Championship that are, I would say, in my position, not professional riders and not amateurs. As of course, now I feel like, these guys now have an advantage on me because, they've now done 2 World Rally Raid Championship rounds. And the good thing about that is that okay, it forces you to do these races, but now at the same time, one didn't finish Abu Dhabi and the other one didn't finish Ruta 40. I don't think that, and this is where I think my ethical departure comes in. I don't think that your experience should be limited to specific races. That's actually the first. Now I love talking these things out because this is the first time I could actually word what was bothering me. So I've heard first on chasing waypoints, but that's it. That's what I've been struggling to say for the last 6 months to myself. That is where I see the problem, because now, in the ASO's view, these guys are loyal customers. They've traveled all the way to Argentina to compete. So they overlook the fact that they didn't finish a specific race and I'm not saying they do, I'm saying that's the running theory, is they're overlooking loyalty for experience. Mm-hmm. And that's maybe what doesn't necessarily sit right with me. But I mean, again, I'm shouting here. I have not been accepted yet. I first have to get accepted, and then we'll see. Then we can have a more concrete discussion. But that's how it feels like to me, at least.
Yeah, I think. I see it as that, like they're trying to get that loyal customer base, and it was interesting after we talked about it. That conversation came up in other groups, and it was the same. There was some people that felt that it was just, man, it's a horrible term to say. It's like a money grab, right? That they're trying to focus on, just generating revenue and forcing revenue, but. I really, and even after the conversation that we had with Donnie and what you brought up about, it's about setting yourself up, but it's also setting the event up for success. Mm-hmm. You're getting people with more experience, and that's putting a load. Because, I mean, a very scary reality that I learned working with them in Sonora, now 2 years ago, I think. It's crazy to think, but
time flies.
I know. But working with them is the fact that, we get to hear about the day that they're on, but there's a whole nother team working on safety and recovery for the previous days. Like there's a list of bikes that are still out there. There's a list of things that are still going on out there from yesterday, and they're already on today. And the guys on today are going to quickly become yesterday if, some things don't happen. I can see, from 50,000 feet, right, increase the elevation a little bit. And now you start to see, okay, well, there's more to this than just like, the money side. This is literally forcing people to prepare better than what would be the norm.
A great example of that was last year in Morocco Desert Challenge, the MDC. They had several fatalities. The fact of the matter is, because MDC is so big and because they don't require, let's call it pre-qualification, and don't get me wrong, I mean, this is a really difficult topic to discuss for everybody because I don't know where I stand about it. I'm not pro pre-qualification necessarily, but to prove your point, a race like MDC, their sweep crew were 2 days behind because of the volume of people that they had to pick up. They had an issue with the heat. People were stuck out in the desert for almost 2 days. The trucks would get to them in the middle of the night. Now, I'm not pointing a finger at the MDC's organization. I'm just trying to discuss the point that you make as far as, you have to have a margin of safety. And I feel that the ASO is bringing that margin of safety in by pre-qualification. The discussion point becomes what's fair and what's right and what ties in to the rally ethos of, if I just push, I need to be given the opportunity to prove myself irrespective of money. And that's where the difficulty comes in. If I had the time and the money, or I could make the time, if I had the money to go and do Road Dakar, of course I would have loved to go and do it. But it's create the problem for me that I foresee is that Dakar is creating a elitist environment. Again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, because these are massive issues that you have to grapple with. To your point, and to the example I just made about MDC, for a race like Dakar, you have to have pre-qualified entrants. You could argue for a race like Sonora and Baja, we should have pre-qualified entrants. Just if we take the previous Sonora the previous Baja that you and I worked on together as an example. If we had pre-qualification, there's some of the issues that we had experienced, we wouldn't have experienced.
Yes.
So it's an extremely difficult subject. I don't know if we'll ever have a true answer to it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's got to keep changing. You have to keep doing different things to figure out what gets and what yields the best results. And I mean, and that's like, if we look at it just as a rally whole, right? As the community, what is it that we want to bring to the table? Like, how do we as a rally community, grow the sport? What is the path forward? We've got people that want to do events. They've got people that want to just do the recreational side of it. And, where do you meet in the middle, and how do you make that process easier? And really, like, it's like when I worked in the schools, right? The idea is that if you set them up front and you break their hearts early, I mean, this sounds aggressive, but if you're upfront with how it is, what the struggles are, what the cost is, and then, okay, you're signed up for it. Even the stuff that would have been painful had they not heard that conversation or been part of that conversation, even the painful things then become a moment. It's not as bad. So for somebody getting into rally, look, hey, it's going to be frustrating. You're going to get lost. It's going to be, or there's going to be road books that absolutely suck. It is what it is, but it's just part of the process. Well, if they would have never have heard that before, they're thinking they're going into their first road book rally event and expecting everything to just make sense, right? They all want to be Skylar House and Ricky Brabeck and riding in the wrong direction, So
no, what you're saying, I fully agree with, and I think that's exactly what we actually sitting here doing now with Decoding Dakar is exactly that, is to provide people with that information and that pain before it's too late. Like, I have at least 2 people phone me a week telling me they're doing Dakar 2025. And then I'm like, look, I don't want to be that guy. And I don't even know if I'm doing Dakar 2025. I hope so. Yeah. But I can certainly tell you you're not, because you haven't entered and you don't have enough points. I'm not being mean. It's just the reality of it. Like, you can't decide today in June that I'm going to do Dakar 2025. You've missed a boat. Maybe think about 26, but to do 26, you're going to need to do this, and this. And you have to start today if you're serious about 26.
Yeah, it is a year. I mean, interesting enough, I just heard back, and we should transition, talk a little bit about the meeting we just had. But at the meeting down at in Ensenada at the Baja 500, I had a chance to talk to the one of the guys from the ASO, Ronan, and about being part of the staff. So I got back, I said, all right, I sent my resume, did everything. And then I heard back literally just this morning, and they said, we've got our staffing pretty much wrapped up. So here we are, 6 months away from the rally, and staffing is pretty much done. So like you said, I mean, then that's just staffing. Now exactly. Now they got all of these participants. The next months are all going to be, because it goes from now. When do they announce? Is it in October?
Well, the good thing is that apparently not apparently, according to what we heard at the meeting, that the bike entries close on 15 July. So, we're almost a month away from the bike entries closing. How long after that we're going to hear? I don't know, man. I'm on the eggshells. I'm hoping we hear on the 16th. But yeah, realistically, I guess we're going to hear in August or September.
Yeah, that is, I think it's a good, what should we say? I think it's good that they're kind of closing it early, which leads me to believe that, man, they get that many entries that they're like, okay, you know, it's like a job position, right? They're like, well, we're going to keep the position open until there's 100 applicants, and then with those 100 applicants, we'll figure it out. And so for them to do that, you know, close it early. Hopefully, we get news early, especially for the bikes, because it seems like that's the hot, you know, the most widely contested to get into.
At least for us, you know, and I think it's just because they get so many entries. They clearly for the cars. I mean, again, I'm now speaking as a complete noob. I have no idea about the cars, but my understanding is that if you want to do Dakar in a buggy on a car, you can just enter. They're not going to care what you've done before. And again, I might be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's the feeling that I'm getting. So the bike thing, and again, as an event organizer, I guess comes from a safety perspective. But then again, it is the ultimate way of doing Dakar, which is why so many people want to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and yeah, I think even that's the other one too. I mean, you think maybe how many motorcycle teams versus how many car teams, you know, and it just logistically, it gets filtered through. They sell the positions to these different vehicles, and then those vehicles, those guys kind of figure out, you know, the who's going. Right. They're weeding out their prospective co-drivers, that kind of thing, navigators.
Very good point. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Yeah, they're selling a team spot. They don't sell a rider spot, whereas with a bike, they sell a rider spot. I love that. Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. Yep.
Yeah, and it seems more feasible. I mean, if you really think, like, if you had the money, it just seems more feasible to send a bike over easier than it is to, I mean, we'd have to talk to somebody like Robbie Gordon to figure out, like, all right, how hard is it to get a car from US to, you know, to Saudi to be able to run this?
So I can't tell you from the US, but from South Africa, you have to send your cars normally, you know, if you want to be ahead of the game, if you want to play the game right, you should send it in October. A lot of the times that is a problem because, like you say, you can't wait till too late 2 years. I literally I sold a tablet to a navigator for one of the Toyota teams, and he was telling me that last year he only heard 3 weeks before Dakar that he's going to Dakar.
Oh,
so your story, or not your story, your the way that you explained it makes exact sense in this regard. It's like, you know, you will have South Racing or Robbie Gordon Racing or Toyota will, and again, maybe a car guy can tell us in the comments, but they buy a spot and then the riders and the navigators gets chosen before the race. That makes complete sense.
Yeah, which is,
because it gives them time for logistics, as we say.
Yeah, well, it's just not an easy feat, no matter where it's coming from. You know,
no, especially if you're developing a car. I mean, you know, you want that up till December to be doing testing and development. So that cuts, and again, that gives guys in Saudi and in the Middle East kind of a running advantage because they can work on their cars for much later than other manufacturers.
Agreed. And I mean, it's, you know, then I don't know, like, I mean, how they have, like, they do the FIA inspections and all of these different things, you know, it's, yeah, the cars are a whole nother ball game. But so let's talk about it.
Episode is about 2025.
Yeah.
You and I tend to get sidetracked very easily.
I know, you know, because there's just so much about it. But there was some announcements. I mean, that was a really cool. Like, I'm glad, you know, I was able to make it. I know it was on your calendar for a minute to get down to this. For me, it was a little bit last minute, but I'm glad to make it because, man, they announced some things, right? For, you know, how the course was designed and what they're doing. Talk about it. Like, what do you think?
I'll run through some of the things. I think to start off, you know, again, in our previous episode, we talked about the value of kind of being together and being physically together and spending time together. And that was a great example of it. Like, you know, it was so good to see old friends and old faces and also meet new people. Like, you know, I've never met some of these guys, that especially the car guys. So it's like a great honor and privilege to meet some of these racing legends, you know, so it's really nice to spend some time together physically with other people. But definitely, I think for me, if we run through them, I think we can unpack them. But the main thing was that, the start bivvy is going to be in Bisha again. This will be the third time that it's in Bisha. And for me, the biggest thing that I'm actually the most excited about is that the prologue is going to finish in the bivvy next to the start stadium. So that's going to be interesting. Bisha is quite far out of any urban centers. And I think that's a theme that we're going to be seeing throughout the 2025 Dakar. And it's something that is in stark contrast to like Ruta 40 and the Dakar when it was in South America, is that in Saudi, the Dakar happens in a vacuum. And that has taken away a lot from people. Personally, it's taken away a lot for me, because that was a big reason why I wanted to compete in Dakar for many years, and a big reason why I've waited so long is because I wanted the people and the fans and the community and the social part of it. I don't necessarily agree with competing in a vacuum, but it is what it is. I can't wait forever. I don't think Dakar is moving out of Saudi anytime soon. Bisha happening far from the urban centers. Then we have one 48-hour chrono stage. Many riders were asking for more. I think after this year, they might not be asking for more, because this year the chrono stage is going to be 950 kilometers compared to 540 last year. So that's almost double the distance.
That was, to me, that was huge. And I mean, at least my feeling as to why they announced that or why they did it that way is too many people got way too close to finishing the stage in the first half. Mm-hmm. So I think that, and then, I don't know if it's an advantage or not, but man, if you made it to the second to last campsite, on this 48-hour chrono, and all you had to do was another 100K to get it home, you had basically another rest day. Mm-hmm.
But wasn't that this year? Wasn't that the day that they had to fly as well?
Yeah.
Back to Riyadh. So I think they probably planned it that way, as far as because they knew people would need to get back to Riyadh. Mm-hmm. Or wherever it was that they were flying to. But so the new one, or the this year's 48-hour chrono, they're promising that the terrain is going to be way more alternating. Last year's chrono was 100% sand. And honestly, I was like jonesing for that. Like I was like, okay, I'm training now with that as being my high point, or my goal is that I need to be able to race for 2 days flat out in the sand without being tired or intimidated. That's what I've been kind of working towards. They changed the goalpost in that, whereas they're saying that this will definitely be a more alternating, faster terrain with a lot of technical sections. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be more like realistically 2 480 kilometer stages with a marathon bivouac in the middle, and it's going to count as one stage. I think that's kind of what we're going to see. Probably, from speaking to the guys, a little bit more like what the Ruta 40 was like right now, a little bit faster, open, because that's the only way you can do that with those distances. They're like the old Dakars.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be able to clear kilometers, which was interesting. I mean, the Ruta 40 this year, I think it was only Skylar that said like day 3 was actually pretty rough, or not rough, but it was a little bit more traditional. Otherwise, they were just basically flat tracking around Argentina. Yeah, you can clear kilometers. Is it much of a challenge? No, but it's just a different thing.
Yeah. It's very interesting that you mentioned that. I'll be listening keenly to when you're unpacking Ruta 40 with one of the guys that was there, because I want to hear more about it. I saw and spoke to a lot of people where I think Ross made a comment one day where he said it was a very short thing, but he was like, today was a proper rally stage. Oh, no, today finally was a proper rally stage. So I got the feeling from what you're saying now, the same as from Skylar, from the guys that I was talking to, that there wasn't a lot of rally riding, and that's sad, because it feels like a lot of these World Rally Raid Championship rounds are going towards the W2RC kind of style. Portugal was a great example as well. Before that, Andalusia. So it would be great to get some feedback from somebody that was there.
Yeah. Yeah, to hear a little bit more. I mean, yeah, last year we had Happy Dave talk about his experience down there, but from this time around, it really did look like another event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, jumping back into 2025, something that I'm super excited about is that there's going to be at least, now I think this is the very important part, it says at least, so it doesn't mean only, at least 5 separated stages between bikes and cars. There's also going to be 5 loop stages, and that is a result of the fact that last year the service crews really had a hard time. Some loved it, some hated it, but it was back to the Dakar of old where the service crews had to race to get to the bivouacs, and the Dakar or any rally organizer do not want the service crews to race because that's a liability issue, and they're not part of the race. They should be adhering to the speed limits on the roads. But it sounds like this year they listened to that. They didn't want the service crews to be spread so thin. So there's also going to be 5 loop stages, which is going to give us way less bivvies. But I think the separate stages for the bikes and the cars, from my experience in Abu Dhabi it's going to be really good for a safety perspective for the bikes. And as I said in our meeting, a lot of the guys finished late, very late last year in the sand stages. Again, for guys that don't understand it, the reason why, you might be going well and then all of a sudden your day just gets bad and you finish in the middle of the night is that once the cars and the trucks catches you in the dunes, you cannot race and you cannot go fast. So you end up falling in behind them. So if you have I don't know how many cars there are in Dakar, 80 or 100 cars pass you, once the first one catches you, it's over. You basically just start hanging back. And that hanging back became such a compounding factor that last year some bikes finished at 3 o'clock in the morning after some of these stages. And that has led them to now split up more of the stages where the bikes are solid only bikes and the cars are only cars. So that's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, that is, and it was funny because they kind of mentioned that, or when they mentioned that, they also talked about how when the car guys have to open a stage, that video that the Dakar posted and showed them kind of mucking around in the desert trying to figure out, they didn't have any bike lines to follow.
I know. So, and that's going to make it very, very interesting because sometimes with these car navigators, I sometimes wonder what will happen if you put them on a bike because it's sometimes it's just like what happened here?
Yeah, exactly. And which is interesting because a lot of those guys tend to be old bike guys.
I think the old bike guys actually knows what they're doing though. It's more the non-bikers. But yeah, we'll see this year how many circles they make in the desert without the bike.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one for sure.
So yeah, in that vein, there's also, once we go into the empty quarter, they're actually also stripping out the trucks. Certain of these stages, the big trucks will have completely separate stages. Now that kind of, I wouldn't say scares me, but having now raced in the empty quarter, the one thing that I am keeping me, it's not like it's keeping me up, but it's definitely helping me kind of visualize what's going to happen, is that there are some of those dunes that's so big and so steep and so high that the trucks won't be riding there. Now, that's just that statement on its own is fine, because that's clearly why they're going to split the trucks out, is that they're going to go through an area where the trucks can't ride. The bigger scary part for me is that, according to me, that's never ever happened in the Dakar, and it's always been something that keeps me grounded as far as a rider. When I get a little bit anxious, then I always say to myself, it's fine. If a car can't ride here, you're not in the right place, because you guys are on the same course. So now, if we're splitting that out, if we're stripping that out and saying like, wow, now we're going to a point where, okay, they could make the bike routes way harder than anything they've done before, because they're not taking cars and trucks into account for those stages. And to me, that's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? It's like they're upping the difficulty level for the bikes, I feel.
Yeah.
Because just by that statement.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and that's kind of what they wanted, you know, and it was interesting to see the video at the beginning, right, where they're, you know, people were providing feedback to David Castera about how, you know, how the event, how the stages, you know, what kind of terrain, things like that, and then taking them into consideration and then seeing how quickly it was applied. You know, now, like you mentioned, you've got basically like a cloverleaf style. You've got less bivouacs, you know, right, and way more sand. So I think the whole combination, like, I don't know, it's kind of tough. I just see riding in dunes not, you know, being more difficult. So I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about how it's going to go. You know, did they make it actually easy? It's like, I'm thinking at it from the Formula One approach, right? And I just saw that, you know, completely different motorsport, that they're going to make the car smaller for 2026. And, you know, it's like, well, didn't they learn their lesson? The last time they said make the car smaller, they fit more of them between each chicane. So the average speed went up. So, you know, I see what they're doing here. You know, it almost, I mean, in my mind, I almost am starting to feel like the top speed and average speed has kind of been taken a back seat to just making the rally more difficult in terrain wise. Like they're done, you know, the tire experiments. Well, you're only allowed 1.5 tires for every 3.2 days, you know, or, you know, weird rules, you know, that helped, that they thought would help foster a slower average speed. Now they're trying it, I think, in a different standpoint or a different manner. And
I honestly I've been crying from the top, or from the rooftops, that's the only way to bring down the average speed for many years. And again, as to our previous conversation with School of Moto, you know, that's the way that I can conduct the rally school safely, is by making the terrain and the navigation so difficult that you can't go fast. There's sections where you literally have to stop at the node and go 50 meters to the next one, because I don't want anybody to be taking chances on a small event like that. So I think hopefully that, you know, because if they bring the bikes, if they force us tomorrow to make the bikes 250 cc's, you know, in the next year they'll be able to get 160 out of that 250. We can't curb the technology, but we can change the terrain. This is what we're going to see this year. I mean, like you say, it's an ongoing experiment, and like they retain what works and they throw away what doesn't. So we'll see if it makes it slower or if it makes it more dangerous, because that's the thing for me in the sand, is just that concentration factor. That's the thing that gets you there. It's different in rocks. In rocks, you have to slow down. But in the sand, you can go fast and you can build confidence. And if you lack your concentration lapse, it's over. So it's going to definitely lead us to be more fatigued than we think.
Yeah, I can agree. I could agree.
So then another one that's pretty interesting is there's going to be a 800K or more than 800K, over 800K marathon stage over and above the chrono. So technically we'll have 2 marathon stages in the Dakar this year. And that's going to be interesting for the top guys. I think for us amateurs, it's more about just staying alive and keeping the bike alive. But for the top guys, as you and I discussed this year, I mean, we had a few discussions during the Dakar, is that, you know, that's going to change the game for the top 30 completely with having 2 marathon stages. Everything can change on those stages, as we know. So that's going to be interesting. And I mean, that's a monster, 8K marathon stage. That's big.
Yeah, I mean, that is... what are we looking at? 62 miles per 100K, 6 times 8. Yeah, a lot of miles for those playing the home game
exactly
on this side. So that, I think, is 2 really good solid days of that. It's going to be very interesting, especially with the amount of sand that they've upped this to. So, you know, get a little bit of varying terrain in that 800 kilometers, but I got a feeling that a lot of that could be sand.
Yeah, they don't say much about the marathon stage. I think it's 100% safe to the 48-hour chrono. They say is going to be varied. So looking at the route, starting in Bisha, we go like northwest, and then we turn east into the empty quarter.
Mm-hmm.
What they do say is that the chrono stage will be in the first half of the rally. So again, if we have to deduce, I would say that if we're going to have the chrono stage in the first half and they tell us it's varying terrain, your assumption that the 800K marathon stage is most probably going to be 100% sand, because I'm assuming it will be after rest day, and by that time we'll be in the empty quarter.
Mm-hmm. Which makes that a very, very, very long. You can't, well, depending on where you go, right? There are the dry lake beds between the dunes and all of that stuff. But I mean, it takes a long time to clear dunes.
I think, I mean, theoretically, as a rider, what I would be hoping for is that they make the marathon stage straight after the race day, because then you can get new clutches in the bikes and, do whatever you need to with them. But that's from a rider perspective. From a competition perspective, it would be very interesting to see where they put the second marathon stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, and then the big one, I hope I can pronounce it properly. I think they pronounce it Shubaita. So Shubaita, I think they've been around that area before. It's literally, if you look at a map of Saudi, it is touching the border of Abu Dhabi, and it's very, very, very similar. It's pretty much the same area as what the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge was in. It just on the other side of the border in Saudi Arabia. So the dunes there are massive. And the thing for me that they threw in this meeting, and, everything that we've discussed up until now pales into comparison to the fact that they said very casually that the penultimate stage is going to be 400 Ks all in the dunes. And that to me was just like, what the hell? Like, that is like, everything for me has now shifted to that. Like, we've now gone from not just surviving Dakar, we've now gone from, okay, I have to survive Dakar until the penultimate stage, and then I have to make sure I can finish that damn stage, because nobody wants to not finish the penultimate stage of Dakar.
Yeah.
And to have 400 kilometers of dunes in the empty quarter, I mean, I don't know how to put it in words, what that means. A good example is that in Abu Dhabi, every stage was 250 Ks. Now, granted, I started, say, 8:30 every day, and I would finish between 2:30 and 3. But that's 250 Ks. So I'm going to have to go 150 Ks longer. Now, hopefully, with Dakar, they're talking about that most of the specials are going to start with the sun. I don't know. I haven't researched yet when the sun will rise that time, but not being in the top 30 or not being a pro, you're gonna start late, and you cannot be out in the dunes once it gets dark. It's not possible. You can't navigate. So it's going to be that the whole Dakar is going to come down to that one stage for everybody, amateurs, professionals. It doesn't matter. 400 Ks the last day before the last day is just gonna be what on earth are they thinking? They really made sure that they're going to keep us on our toes, and it literally will not be over until it's over this year. So that it's given me a whole new lease on life as far as what I have to be prepared for and what I should be training for.
Yeah, I mean that is the farewell to the rally, and I think that is, well. Do you think that this is a bid to help avoid the rally being really, really locked up? It seems like the last couple of years, you get to the last stage, and you pretty much already knew, but it was just down to seconds. Maybe this is their bid to help spice it up a little bit, maybe create more of a gap or more of an opportunity.
And stories. I mean, I think it's going to succeed. I think it's going to work because, it's, well, how long is it? 12, 14 days. We at the end of 12 or 14 days of racing, even if we have, as you say, which happened the last few years, that 2, 3, 4 second gaps, it all goes out the window with a 400k sand stage, everything. And depending on when and where the marathon stage was, we have to, and again, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about the top guys. You have to take into account the condition of the bikes, whether, let's play out the scenario where the top 5 guys is a few seconds apart. The team is going to make the decision then, we finish or we push for the podium. So we're going to really see amazing battles play out for like 4th, 5th, 3rd, because you're going to have to sit down with your team and you're going to have to make that decision before the second last stage of Dakar, because we're going to sit with a scenario where you cannot risk it. And you're going to have somebody that says, I'm fine, I can throw away 12 days of racing because I want the podium. And then you're going to get somebody that says, no, we just have to finish the stage. So I think it's going to really spice it up.
Yeah, I think it's going to create that opportunity.
And I also think now that we talk about it, man, I love talking about this stuff. I didn't think about this before. It's going to create much harder racing up till then, because every single pro's aim is going to be to build up as big as possible a gap before the stage. This is going to be this is going to be the thing where everybody is like, okay, I want to go into the second last stage with as big a possible gap because I know anything can happen there.
Yeah, exactly. This could be like, they want to have a big enough gap that if something goes sideways in that stage, it doesn't evaporate.
Yeah, or even that they can just take it easier because they don't want to break their machine. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll have enough energy to follow it. I'll have to follow you. You'll just have to give me the updates during the race, being like, okay, this is what's happening. But I think you guys are in for a treat as far as the entertainment factor is concerned.
I agree. I got a feeling that this event is, with what the changes have been, I think that they're on the right track. For creating a more diverse event, in as far as the leaders and the battles, and I think they're really going to do that. And with this chrono stage, making that a more of a, introducing it, and then now making it more prominent. Like, they learned a lot last year, and now they're really like, okay, well, we're just going to pretty much double the kilometers of this thing, and this is how we intended for it to go last year, by sending them into the sand. So making that more difficult. And then that farewell stage, where it's just going to be a long day in the sand again. I think that's going to be the common theme. I don't know. I'd be interested to see how teams, now knowing that, maybe prepare, if they prepare differently. Like, are we going to see the Honda team now running more road books out in the dunes? What are they going to be? How are they going to get ready for this? Where are they going to test the bikes, the setup, all of these things, just to prepare?
Yep. And is anybody gunning to kind of unseat Honda other than Euro? I feel like KTM has lost its luster for rally. I feel like they're just not there. As far as, I don't know, they're just not coming back to the table. So it'll be very interesting to see. I feel like Ross and Euro is really the only guys that's like putting up a fight at this point and being like, okay, let's make some competition, for Honda. I mean, they're dominant at the moment. They're like KTM was in the old days. So it's going to be very exciting to see if anybody is going to rise to the occasion in Dakar to kind of bring it, bring it on and see what's going on, because it's going to be big. And I think the last big thing that we have to look forward to is that there will be a mass, as you guys say, a mass start. I think it's also the penultimate stage, I think, or it's the last one, but towards the end of the rally they're going to have a mass start, and that's going to be, they're definitely trying to go back to the Dakars of old, bring that feeling back, that nostalgic racing energy. And that 400k penultimate stage can do the same thing, because you're going to have people's dreams shattered and you're going to have others' dreams realized, and it brings back the dreaminess of Dakar.
No, and that's a good point. There, with that stage, it's kind of, maybe it's like a two-part thing. Okay, we have to make that penultimate stage challenging, or we need to have something in there, because when they go to the mass start, doing a bomb run, right, like how they do here in the hare scrambles, right, one flag and everybody goes, it could get a little bit dicey, it could get a little bit tricky, in the timing side of it. Nobody's going to have an outright advantage. There's no more Dakar swing. It's like you have to go into that with some kind of lead, because otherwise, I have no advantage now. I will not be able to make up the time. I'm not going to sandbag because we're all taking off at the same time, so we're not going to have that chance to fight for those few seconds like they would have in the past. They were inverting the starting order. So, I don't know. Yeah, that gives you more tracks, but I don't know how well that really pans out for the top guys if they're all the way in the back.
Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be very hare and hound-esque, right? Because whoever makes it to the front of that pack, I mean, I have no idea. If they say mass start, I mean, they're not very clear as far as, is it everybody, cars, bikes together, or if it's just bikes. But either way, whoever gets in front, I don't know. I cannot even begin to start feeling the emotions of that guy, because, I mean, you're going to have the guys that just don't like, that just be like, okay, I'll just sit behind whoever, because I'm not going to do all the work. I know I'm fast enough to keep up with him. And then you're going to get the guys that's just going to think, fuck it, the guys that just think I'm going to outrun it, and there's nobody that's going to catch me. So I mean, it would be great to see, I mean, how that's going to pan out. If there's somebody on the world stage that from a flat out start can pull ahead of everybody else while opening the piste, or if everybody else is just going to hang back and be like, you know what, you do the work, we'll follow you. Because the pack, I mean, normally you have 4 or 5 guys together with the gaps of starting order. Can you imagine the size of the pack of that stage? Because everybody is just going to be on top of each other, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be interesting, which leads me to believe, and again, this is 100% theory, that we shouldn't discount the last stage of Dakar, because if that's a mass start and if everybody can be together, that as an event organizer, what I then would do is I would make the navigation super tricky on the last day, because I don't want people just to follow one guy. I want them to be super confused. That would be very interesting, is to see if, yes, we finished the 400k stage yesterday and now we think the Dakar is over. And then all of a sudden, even though it's a short stage, we come to realize like, oh man, we don't know where the hell we're going. That might be a very real possibility, and that's definitely something that I can see play out in the organizers' offices, as far as, okay, let's give them some really tough navigation on the last day. Because then whoever in the pack unlocks the navigation, he's going to be the guy that makes up the time, and it might not be anything to do with speed.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be, well, and that'll be interesting, because now you're going to have a whole group of guys that couldn't have, the top teams will separate. It will come down to a tricky note where one of the guys figures it out without the others figuring it out, and, being able to sneak away. It's going to really be an interesting thing.
I know, it's like super exciting. I'm just like, I'm sitting here smiling, being like, man, this is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think they did right by doing that. For me, my two biggest, The longer 48-hour chrono stage, I mean, I think they are the biggest changes to me. The 48-hour chrono stage being much longer, and then the mass start at the end. To me, those are the two biggest things that really are going to shape this year's Dakar. What do you think? What are your...
Yeah, I think 100% agreed. I think I would add to that the big marathon stage, as we discussed, that might be in the sand. If it is, it's going to definitely play a big role. So until we know when that marathon stage is, we won't know. So if they put it straight after the rest day, that's not going to really play a big role. But if it's, just for theory's sake, right? Just for theory's sake, what if they make the marathon stage or the stage before the 400K penultimate stage? I mean, that would change everything. So it's a very difficult one to answer as far as how the marathon stage in the second half will shape it. But for me, as far as changes is concerned, fully agree with you. I think that the biggest thing to watch for me personally is going to be that penultimate stage. That's going to be, at least as a prospective rider, that's the thing that I am already now planning for and training for, and being like, okay, a 400K, because they're not, normally they would be like, hiding it or kind of being a little bit vague about it. They're not vague about it. They're like, listen, guys, the second to last stage is going to be 400 kilometers of pure dunes. So it's almost like, when you're studying for an exam and your lecturer tells you, study this. It's going to be in the exam. Yeah. And he gives you free marks or free points. He's like, this will be in the exam. Study it. I feel like they're doing the same thing. They're like, don't come and cry, because we're telling you that it's not going to be 50% shots and 50% dunes. It's going to be 400 Ks of dunes. We're telling it to you right now with more than enough time. So that is, that to me is like the blow away thing here. And it's like, okay, I need to get to the point where I can ride 400 Ks in the dunes and still be strong afterwards. after 12 days of riding.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is, that's what we've talked about that, previously. That is really where the riding ability and if your style of riding is hyper efficient, you can ride 100 miles, and that's what the average person, you expend the energy that an average person would use in riding 20 miles. And that is going to be super, to me, I think is going to be super important.
And I think I have to give props there to Mike Johnson. Before Abu Dhabi, he was really like, he kept on reiterating to me the fact that, Willem, like, the moment you shouldn't be getting tired on your bike. The moment you get tired, you're doing something wrong. And I think if we look at his performance and his age, somebody like Mike Johnson is the epitome of that, of using minimal energy. And, I took that with me into Abu Dhabi, and it really helped. So, I fully agree with you there. You have to find a way to not expend energy and just let the bike do the work.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's, coming soon for me. I mean, that is where I'm trying to get with my riding right now. I mean, I got a really slow pace, and I know I expend a lot of energy. I feel like it's tough for me. And so this is a topic for me, that I kind of keep reiterating, is just how important it is to have your riding dialed in to allow for maximum brain power to go to navigating. You don't want to be in the dunes thinking, man, my legs are burning. Why are my legs burning? Why are my legs on fire?
Why can't I see?
Yeah, why can't I see? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you go from that with the temperatures and with the, the expending of energy. And next thing you know, you're thinking that's an oasis over on the next dune. And maybe you could stop for, you like the cartoons, you're blowing bubbles now at this point. So it really, it really is a package deal. And man, I almost, we're talking about, we just finished talking about how tricky the navigation is going to be. And now you got to think like, well, wait a minute. Now the physical aspect of this
is going to be a very big part.
And throwing into that, again, I'm discerning, I'm now making the difference between the pros and the non-pros. For me as a normal rider, yes, it gets hard when the cars catch you, but at least when the cars catch you, you don't have to navigate anymore. When it's only bike tracks, you still have to navigate, even if you're in the desert, even if the top guys is ahead of you, they play games, they go off on wrong caps, you have to still navigate. Now, for let's call it the amateurs, or for the normal guys like myself, on the stages where there's going to be no cars, you're still going to have to navigate the whole stage. So there's almost like a not a payoff, but a trade-off. Whereas yes, it's safer, but the nav is going to be harder because you cannot trust the tracks in front of you. It's not possible, or the guy in front of you might make a mistake. It happens, and that's the thing, especially in the dunes. What happens if there's a ton of tracks, a lot of the times you can cut the course in a sense of be off to the side and cut pieces of it out, because you look up and you see ahead in the distance. That's where the tracks cross, or where the course goes. So I don't, if there's no waypoint in between here and there, I might as well just go there and follow the tracks.
Yes.
That's going to go away on the stages where there are no cars. Again, for the amateurs. For the top guys, it stays the same right through. But for somebody like me, where, okay, now I'm tired, I'm really spent, I have
Uh-oh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some technical difficulties in this one. Let's get Willem back on the phone. We'll actually call him here because it looks like there is a time limit on recording. How does that happen? Let's see if we can get him here.
Subscribing.
Right, let's give him just a second. We'll get him back on the line here. All right, we're back now. So it's recording again, but
to be like, oh my word.
No, so let's see. We were talking specifically about the expending of the energy and the last stages, the sand being tough. I mean, that's where we left off before the thing cut out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was going down the road there, but luckily the good thing is now I've already mumbled enough to summarize it in simply saying that on the stages where the cars and the bikes are going to be separated, for guys like me or normal amateur guys that's just trying to survive Dakar, that's going to actually make it tougher on the nav, because I've learned, and I mean, you taught this from whenever you start rally, never to follow tracks. And even in the big races, the top guys play games with each other, and since it's in the desert, you cannot necessarily just follow the tracks of the other bikes, because you don't know what games they are playing.
Yeah.
And if the front guy, and it's happened in Abu Dhabi, if the front guy goes wrong on purpose, everybody else goes with him. So you cannot just follow bike tracks alone. Again, the scenario that I was saying is that if I'm, let's say I'm towards the back, I'm tired, I just don't want to ride anymore, but I have to get through the stage. As dangerous as the cars were, it was also a lifeline, because you could just follow the tracks and make it to the end of the stage.
Yes.
That's going to disappear on the stages now where there are no cars. So if, as we talked about, you're so physically fatigued that you're starting to hallucinate, and that, okay, look, I'm out of it. In the past, you could follow the plow trail that was the cars. Whereas now with the bike, you're going to still have to be mentally on it all the way to the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're not gonna. It's not going to make it easy by any stretch of the imagination, especially with that combination happening right at the end. Yeah, so it's going to be a good one.
I think it's going to be good.
Be
It's
very,
going to be
very
a good one. Yeah, there's no two ways about it. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
Excellent.
well, you guys will have to get your bets in and start making your predictions early, because I think it's going to be interesting.
I 100% agree. I think maybe this will be the first year I participate in the that thing that Quinn Cody and those guys do with the Dakar, Dakar Fantasy League. May have to participate this time.
Yeah, well, you've got the expertise. I mean, theoretically, you're the best placed of all of us to be able to make a prediction. So
we'll see. I made a couple of lucky predictions or lucky choices last year, so we'll see. We'll see if we can put that to use this time around. I don't know. It'll be good. Well, all right. Let's in closing, what are the plans the next month or so? What are we doing?
I'm heading up to Canada. Actually, this weekend we're doing a New Hampshire Rally Day. I don't actually think there's ever been a road book in New Hampshire and Vermont as far as an event. So I made a road book with the help of a guy, Mark, from 186 ADV, and we made like just a 100 and something K road book, and it's anybody that wants to try it can just come and ride it, just to kind of experience a road book in New England, because I don't think it's been done. So we're doing that this weekend, and then I'm headed off to Canada for the Boreal Royale, and then I'm in South Africa for training. Then hopefully the next time you and I talk, I will be, I hope, like having a little acceptance letter, if they're going to let us know early enough. So let's say if we are in August. If we don't hear in August, then, we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about, but it might not be that. So let's see. It's all now the big waiting game to get that letter.
Yeah, agreed. And hopefully it comes sooner than later, and they don't have a long suspense about it.
It's the Dakar and it's the French. There's going to be a suspense.
They have to do it.
It's principle. I think from my side, for the listeners and for everybody that's following along, I think that once that comes, I mean, I'm already kind of kicking it into high gear, but then it'll be, hopefully we can bring more people on board around that time and kind of increase the circle and just be like, okay, like I say this on every episode, but like I really truly see it as a community effort and as something that we're kind of doing for everybody that is dreaming or are dreaming of one day doing this. Like, yes, it's me doing it, but I've wanted to do it my whole life, and I want to be able to help and assist anybody else that has that same dream to be able to do it as well and bring them along for the rides. Hopefully, once that letter comes in, we'll kick Decoding Dakar into even higher gear. And as I always say, please, if you guys have anything you want to know or see specifically, please let Victor or myself know so that we can cover it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there's things that we talk about, but there may be another question out there that needs answering, or something that maybe we need to figure out and people want to know. So
exactly,
we definitely want to do that. Well,
and so Victor, as always, thank you for you, man. This is so nice. I mean, just to get to speak to bikes unfettered for an hour is always fun.
Yes.
I love my time with you, but thank you so much for giving us the opportunity and the space to talk about Decoding Dakar. And let's see how it goes, man. Really appreciate it.
No, and I appreciate you guys taking the time. You and Donnie last week, and then this time around with you, taking time. And I know you guys got a lot going on, and so we greatly appreciate sharing the story. And I think a lot of people are learning, man. I think they're liking, the idea of like, okay, well, this is the true story about getting into the Dakar, and maybe they know it, but now the masses are involved in this, so it's awesome.
We hope so. We need to get it, and please, you guys that's listening out there, please share the story, share the word. It's the more people know about this, the more it helps me. And I honestly need every bit of help I can get. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, of course, the links will be in the description if you guys are playing the home game and want to find out more about Willem's journey. We'll have that on there as well. So you can check that out.
Great. Well, cool. Thanks, Victor. And thank you for making the time. I mean, people forget that you also have a day job. So. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. See you. Bye.
All right, so there you have it, Willem Avenant Racing. That was the second part of it, and sorry about that, man. We literally backing up recordings here and doing all sorts of fun stuff, and well, I guess there was a time limit on the recording side of things. But anyway, man, a lot going on coming up for this Dakar Rally in 2025. So looking forward to that and seeing how that shakes loose. Again, got a lot of stuff going on. I'm hoping we're back on our regular schedule and you guys are enjoying the episodes. And yeah, keep in touch with us. I mean, definitely, you've got the direct messages on Instagram. If you're on Spotify listening to this, jump on down to the description or jump on down, hit the button. You can leave a comment there. Of course, if you are on the YouTube music side of things and watching this on YouTube, you can drop a comment there as well. Like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff helps us go a great distance in getting to this. And hey, you know what? One of these years we'll make it to the Dakar Rally and we'll bring you stuff live and some of the stuff from the bivouac that is happening. So hope everybody is well. Remember, guys, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride.